I'm Melony a global real estate advisor with Gibson Sotheby's based in Metro Boston. I closely advise homebuyers and sellers of all stages of life, guiding them to intelligent, winning decisions.
I'm Derek Lumpkins, a real estate investor with a background in community organizing. I also enhance equity and inclusion initiatives at companies and organizations, and I guide leaders through executive coaching.
When we get together, we dive into the intersections of culture, class, mindset, and Black freedom.
Welcome to the Blacklining Forum,
a podcast about Black wealth, power, and land.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, Derek, it's going lovely. Always good to see you.
Good to see you too. Good to see you too. Hope you had a good weekend.
Happy to be alive, Derek.
That's good. That's good. Before we get into things, I want to do one shameless plug because, as you know, I did a little bit of reconfiguration of my website, added the Blacklining Forum to it. So, I feel like people should know where they can go to see the information. So it's on my website, refreshstrategies today.com/blacklining-forum. I will add it to the notes, the episode notes as well, the show notes. So folks who are listening and not looking at it on the screen can also take a look at it that way as well. So just a quick shameless plug. But,
wonderful.
And actually I'll also add, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. All right.
Thank you.
Sure. So with that in mind, so, we are on the internet right now. I just showed our website. The question I wanted to pose to start off today's episode is, what's something fun or something memorable from your youth pre-internet?
Mm-hmm. That's so easy, Derek.
Okay. Share it with us.
Child of the 80s. I still remember my landline phone number. And so one of the favoritist things was when my parents weren't home and I could take the phone with the cord super long with extensions on it, drag it to my room, upstairs to my room. I feel like at one point...
Wait. You said upstairs?
Well, I know. But then actually also at one point, we also then had phone jacks upstairs. Yes, I actually grew up in a 2-floor house and 1 bathroom, but depending on how you counted it, 3-4 bedroom house. And my room was in the middle. It was a pass-through room, kind of. But I did have my own room for most of my life after sharing it for a little bit with my younger brother for the first few years. And then, so I could drag it into my room. And then, you have the long coil of the cord for between the receiver and the, I guess you call it ear set.
I think that is the receiver.
Okay, well, see, this is telling how dated the technology is in my mind. Anyway, but just to be able to be on the phone after school, like squirrel away for some privacy and just be on the phone for forever until, my mother would come home and have to quickly hang up. But that was a big part of just the fun of feeling like you had some independence because I had to be at home, but I could be connected with my friends. It was like continuity from school. We would just get home and all get on the phone and get on 3-way.
Got it.
Yeah.
No, and I wasn't surprised that you live in a 2-story house. I was surprised when you said you took the phone through a hallway and up the stairs. I'm like, that sounds like something from a cartoon where the phone line is like a mile
because
long.
It's like extension cords. You could use the power cord. You could do extenders on it and drag it up. And then eventually we didn't have to do that. And then eventually I actually did get my own phone jack for my room. Okay. But that was like when I was 13, I think.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm. But it was a whole competition. It's like you get home and you're trying to get the phone before your older siblings get the phone.
Awesome. See, I don't have any memories of older siblings as an only child. Didn't have to worry about that.
What about you?
So for me, I think the fun thing about that time in the youth was music. So, of course, hip hop was still relatively young at that point. So hip hop was fun back then. But even I'm not a big fan of 80s pop music. So that, that was central to my childhood. Like I remember growing up loving, I have a very large extended family, no siblings, but a very, very large extended family. So I listened to a ton of music from the 70s, so a lot
Yes.
of disco, a lot of funk, then a lot of like 60s doo-wop. Love all that. So by the
Mm-hmm.
time the 80s pop music came around, I'm like, this is trash.
This is not real music. Yeah.
I hated it. I hated it because I missed the old music that had actual instruments and
Yeah.
actual singing. But I will say, and I've had conversations with people where we're talking about 80s, because I'm really not a fan of 80s music at all. But I will say there are 4 artists who are, I think, who are like the gems of the 80s. And so those 4, and I don't think there's any more than those 4. But
They are
those 4
exceptions.
based,
I'm sure I know 2 of them. Their names both start with an M.
don't give it away yet. Don't give it
Okay.
away.
I mean, we haven't talked about
but
I'm making assumptions.
no, that's true. That's true. But the reason I'm picking these 4 is for 2 reasons. 1, for longevity, and 2, for
Yes.
influence,
Yes.
both within the time period and beyond. So
Yes.
the 4 that I would pick are Michael Jackson,
Yes.
Prince,
Okay. Yes. I mean, yes. Yes.
George Michael,
Okay. Yeah.
and Madonna.
Yes. Definitely Madonna. So
Those
your
are the
bookends
4.
were the 2 that came to my mind. And I think, George Michael, in that he had an interesting, I think, kind of crossover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a pop star, he crossed over not just genres but countries. He also, I don't know if he was one of the early pioneers of coming out as a musician, but he came out and that sort of changed things as well. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that he did.
That kind of crossover.
Both
That
visually
Black
and
people
musically.
embraced him. Yeah. Whereas Prince was his own category anyway. But yes. And all these people were very countercultural, actually.
And they're Michael Jackson.
They created their own culture. Michael
Yes.
Jackson created his own
That's what I mean by influential.
And subculture.
Yeah, that's what I mean by influential. They had so much influence over pop music. And I'm sticking closer to pop because I'm sure people would say, well, what about Tina Turner? What about this other person? And I'm like, no. Strictly within the realm of pop, that's where these 4, I think, are unique.
And we're okay.
With their time.
My strict immigrant parents, I was allowed to listen to Michael Jackson. It was like he was replete, like everywhere. Like Beat It was like, oh my God, I'm bad. Oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of like seeping into all that is. Yeah.
Yeah. Because not just for him, not just the music, but it was also he was creating dances. He was creating styles of outfits.
It felt like new genres. It felt like a new way to be in culture. Entirely like mind blowing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we should bring our cousin in because I know she's gonna have something to say. All right. Let's bring her.
Malia, join us.
Hey.
Ooh.
Hello. As you guys were talking, I had to like dig in the crates because I have some show and tell. And obviously, when I think about the 80s, my memories of the 80s start more later 80s, right? I was 10 in 87. But I was so excited about this topic that I brought in some show and tell for us when I think about life pre-internet.
Okay.
So the first thing, these were the first 2 records I pulled.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my heart. Oh.
So people who are listening can't see what you're holding.
Oh, We Are the World. So We Are the World. And this is the one that I bought from Tower Records with my little allowance money. And this is, so I've, owned this since it came out.
I'm about to weep.
And then the other one I pulled.
By the way, if y'all haven't, you must see the documentary about the making.
Oh, it's so good. One night in, right? Like One Night in Pop or something like that, right? Like,
I've seen the trailer for it.
It's just enthralling.
It's so good. So then the other one I pulled.
Okay.
Because as you said, like for me, Prince plays such a role. And then you had mentioned, so it's a Prince album, everyone. And it's Prince and the Revolution.
Yeah.
Which is a time of Prince. And then you mentioned Madonna. And so This
Come
is
on.
the Madonna. It's a Madonna in her like a virgin dress.
Yes.
And what I remember about this so well was Madonna masturbating on stage at like the Grammys or the VMAs. I don't know if you guys remember that.
No, I wasn't even allowed to watch these things, so I do not.
Oh, okay. So, and well, let me tell you, my mom shut off the TV and it was over. But you know, so music I think is totally something I remember. The other thing I brought was my pager.
Oh, honey, impressed.
I
But
never
wasn't
understood
that
the
90s?
appeal of
Was that
pagers.
actually 80s?
It was late 80s. Yeah, I never
And
understood
it's
the appeal of pagers.
pre-internet. Like I'm thinking
Yeah.
like Gen X stuff, you know,
Always
like
explain to people what a pager is, probably.
so a
That's
pager was cutting edge
Oh
technology.
my God.
Back when I was like 12 and 13 and I begged, like it was a negotiating tool to get me this pay. You know, like my mother would be like, don't act up or else you won't get a pay. You know, like it was like this whole, I wanted one so bad. And I had to wait till I was 13. Anyway, so it was something that people could call in and they would leave a phone number. And then you would go to a payphone and you would call them and they would be like, oh, hey, yeah, no, we're actually going to meet at the so-and-so.
So you would get pinged on your little device with someone's phone number and you knew to go and call that number.
Yes.
What's interesting is, so I think of that as a little bit more 90s, but it very well may have been 80s. But my relationship to the pager is like, you almost wouldn't want a pager because that's what the drug dealers had. And
Yes.
so one of my brothers who was in the trade had multiple pagers and like, so, and they were black and it was like, that was like, whoa.
Well, do you remember that
Or
Real
you're really
World?
cool or you're really edgy if you had a pager. It was like, whoa.
Right. I mean, listen, that's why I wanted it. I was 12. I was edgy. You know what I mean? I was watching, you know, what was going on over on the mainland while I was in Hawaii. You know what I mean? I was from the mean streets of Honolulu. But do you remember that Real World when Kevin Powell had a pager and then the woman was like, are you a drug dealer? And then it became this whole thing of like, you're a racist. But the last thing I brought, which is a bridge from the late 80s to the early 90s, and this is actually a replica. So I found this and I had to buy it.
Oh, honey. Yeah.
But this is an Africa medallion that you would rock. And it's, again, it was like, you know, it was, I mean, I guess like Hebrew Israelites, right? Like there was this, what we would call today Hotep, but I feel like back then it was a broader range and some of them read, some of them respected women, you know, all were probably homophobic, right? Like there was it was problematic, but there was a spectrum versus just, but yeah, that medallion. And when I was 13, my mother bought me the autobiography of Malcolm X and I called her the blue-eyed white devil. But that's another thing pre-internet. I feel like somehow we created hip hop.
Yes.
Without the internet.
Without the, I love, you're really taking us down the road because you bring up the Africa medallion and then I'm like, yeah, that's right. Pagers were 80s because all that, there was a long run. Yeah. Before even the early 90s. So there was an Africa consciousness. I would think that was also coming out of the apartheid movement. So people felt emboldened to identify and make a statement.
Right. And really, could we say the liberation movements of Africa happening in the 70s, right? So there's this Pan-African pride that then leads to South Africa divestment, which we were all as children well aware of, you know, I'm saying participating in, you know, in the sense of like, you know, we knew a little something, you know, if you could, right, you may have told your mom, right, like we can't buy that or whatever it was.
Or you saw the reflections on the street. You saw people wearing dashikis.
Yes.
Right? And I grew up.
But I mean, they've been wearing those since like the 60s too.
This is true. That's a good point. But I remember Queen Latifah, who grew up in Newark, and I wonder if she's probably she's older than me, I'm sure, but I don't think she can't be that much older than
She's
us.
still in her 50s, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds right. And I remember her when she chose the name Latifah. I remember her talking about back then and about the representations that she started to see more and more in the streets in Newark, which is a working class, in lots of ways poor, highly concentrated Black city in New Jersey. And so like that just, I think you saw it more on the streets, like people selling their wares and creating things.
It was the continuation from the, like, like those 70, like my dad, I have a picture of my father in daishiki, some poom poom shorts, a big ol' afro, you know what I mean? Like looking like, like you think about the basketball players and the shorts they were wearing back then, right? Like that little, what was it? Magnum PI shorts, right? Like, and and his friend Juba, who was like this 6'8", and Juba would play the drum, and they would be sitting out there smoking weed, with oils and stuff. And I think unfortunately we've lost that in like the neoliberalism conversation that happened throughout the 80s and in this capitalism.
Yes.
And now it became sort of this joke of like Hotep.
Yes.
Right. Like, or even in Living Color, like it kind of started with the Living Color. Like, remember that Damon Wayans character that was like the presupposition of remember that guy?
Yeah.
Right. He had his like,
but not just in Living Color, but also Living Single. Because they would jest of that as well. What'd you say?
Yes. It was like a caricature of this daishiki. I'm gonna get you, sucker. Right. Like, like that whole, right? Like, oh, you're old school beer soda married to a white woman, which both my dad and Uncle Juba were.
I know. I feel like you're also describing a certain, you almost had like a kind of what I think of as like a California lifestyle over there in Honolulu. Like
definitely more West Coast, right? It's a beachy, it's mountains, but like, when I was in South Africa, we went to this Rastafari village in the mountains.
Yeah.
And these are some self-sustaining, Black, and you see them and you're like, right. Like, cause you're not African American, like, so like you see Black surfers and you see, Black people, like in Puerto Rico, you see Black people swimming, right? Like we forget what the diaspora in America is versus the continent and all of that. But yeah, it was definitely more like beachy, but also like, I think, it was at a time where Hawaii statehood was also only 20 years old.
Oh, wow.
Right. So there's that piece of it. But yeah, I think we were lucky. Who knew we were growing up in the heyday of like post-civil rights?
Yes.
Pre-Rise Again.
But there was still plenty of tension back then.
Oh, listen, we were complaining the whole time. We were complaining the whole time, but I'm saying we now look back and be like, oh shit.
Yeah, because as the two of you were describing like where you grew up, so Hawaii and New Jersey, I was thinking back to Boston. And growing up in Boston in the 80s, it very much promoted itself as a blue-collar city, a very working-class blue-collar city, which anybody who knows Boston now, it's far from that. I mean, it still has some blue-collar neighborhoods and blue-collar suburbs, but it's very much a very wealthy, very white-collar, very professional medical class city. But I'm thinking back when, the Celtics and the Lakers were the thing. And occasionally, the Sixers, the 76ers would kind of like, jump into the mix as well. But basically it was like Boston versus LA in basketball, at least. And how you would just see all these rivalries. And because, Larry Bird was the predominant star of the Celtics and Magic Johnson, a Black man who was the predominant star of the Lakers, it kind of had this racial tinge that I wasn't too young to understand, but I was just young enough to not be sure if it was real.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the same time, Bird played with a predominantly Black team.
Mm-hmm.
And there were like rumors floating around that he was actually kind of progressive. And so I was kind of like, well, how much of this is hype? How much of this is the actual heat of the moment? And then, later you would see the two of them were kind of like friends in a weird kind of way.
Are still very good friends. I mean, when Magic was diagnosed, Bird was the first one to come to hug him, to like to really support him. And when frickin' Karl Malone was saying he shouldn't be playing as the head of the Players League, while meanwhile, P.S. he's having a child with a teenage child, like Larry Bird was like, no, we're playing on the dream team, like very much was one of the first advocates. And so I think you're right in the sense of it was hype, but I think it was also the fandom. Because I think about it with Eminem, I think about it with Caitlin Clark. Like, you're bringing in this fan, like, you can be invited to the barbecue, right? Larry Bird can be invited to the barbecue unless my dad's at the door at that day, because Larry Bird will not be let in because he broke his heart way too many times. But as a New Yorker, but you bring in a fan that is not invited to the barbecue, right? Eminem did the same thing with hip hop, where it's like, Eminem, you act like you're a tourist here, right? Like, you give people the respect. You were the white boy taking the knee at the Super Bowl, right? Like, you sit within this Black power dynamic in hip hop as best you can as a white boy, right? And again, I'm just talking about race because we can get into all the other stuff at a different time. But your fans don't, bruh, right? Like, your fans are coming in and they're saying things and they're doing things. And so maybe that was also part of it. You had all these racist Boston fans that were like, yeah, he's jumping up. You know what I mean? Like, maybe like saying shit that people were like, yeah, no, let's all root for the Black team.
Mm-hmm. Boston is a complicated place, though, when it comes to fandom. That's the thing. Because I can't think, and granted, I was still young, and I'm sure we'll probably get some comments, but I can't think of any Black Bostonians who were that adamantly against the Celtics. I mean, they might have been like, yeah, we wish we had a Black team, but
no. Black people love the Celtics, right? That's our team.
Love the Celtics. Yeah, that's our team. That is the team. Especially depending upon who we're playing. If it was LA, beat LA. If it was the Sixers, yeah, beat Philly. If it was New York, it was like New York. So, like, sorry, Melony. But yeah, we are really fans. I mean, of course, you might say, well, I'm supporting, why am I blanking on his name? Because it was the big three. It was Larry Bird, Kevin McHale,
Patrick Ewing,
Robert Parrish. Yeah. So they, Black folks might have gravitated more towards.
But then there was also, Parrish. What was his name? Kevin McHale.
Oh, I don't remember. One of my brothers, a lifelong, still, he's in his 50s, lifelong bleeds green Celtics fan. So me as a little kid, I mean, all I remember was my mother approving of this guy, Patrick Ewing. I think he had to have had Jamaican heritage. So, yeah. So my mother was into that fact, but it was like all we heard was Celtics because of Larry Bird, because my brother was obsessed. So even though I was outside of New York City, that was my orientation, very limited orientation to basketball because I don't follow sports, but
yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I was raised because, my father being a Knicks fan, I was raised, but also my father was a bigger baseball, like my father's a bigger Yankees fan. You know what I mean? Like, because now he's a LeBron fan. And like once LeBron came onto the scene, he sort of followed, like he likes watching LeBron play. Right. So he's not so much a team, like, as much as like liking to follow
the character.
LeBron. Exactly. I think like because I found this happen to me too with the Celtics. Like, you get a team that you love, maybe you almost make it to the championships, maybe you make it, and then all of a sudden, for whatever capitalist reasons, the team breaks up and you're kind of like, okay, now I got to follow these new guys. I don't know nothing about them. I don't love them like that. Like, I can name a few of the players. One was a client, right? Like, but I don't have the same love as I did for the Paul Pierces, right? Like, and back then, because I was more in it then, right? I had time for fandom. I had time for like excitement. And wait, now was OJ the 80s or the 90s?
80s.
And the
Right?
70s.
Yeah, that's true. 70s. Wait, before we move on from the Celtics, though, again, just I have to say a qualifier because I don't know sports. But Bill Russell, wasn't he at some point, didn't he take over?
He was a player coach. So he was a player.
Coaching. That's
This
what it
is
was.
yeah, this was before Larry Bird even played. He was the first Black player in Boston, and he was treated like shit.
Like literally.
And yeah, like literally,
Because
someone from Boston
incidents.
broke into his house and shit in his bed. And this is why it took a while.
Wasn't he the first Black player in the NBA? Yeah.
I don't know if he. I don't know.
Because Boston was the first team to integrate, I believe. The Celtics
I
were
know
the first.
Boston was the first team to play against Black teams, but what about like Wilt Chamberlain?
Yeah.
Like, because he was part of that whole generation, right? Well, let's look this up.
Yeah.
Because now we have the internet.
I'm going to look it up. You keep talking. I'm going to get us
now
some
we have
real
internet.
facts.
Well, while you're looking that up, I do want to do a slight segue. So we're talking about birds. We're talking about Bird from the Celtics. And part of the reason we started talking about this topic was because of
why are we talking about this?
Because of another bird that Malia and I were talking about last week, which is Big Bird.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember how we got onto that topic, but we were talking about Sesame Street. We were talking about Rogers, the electric company.
I'm sorry, I just want to jump in. Earl Lloyd was the first Black player in the NBA. Shout out to Earl Lloyd.
And who did Earl play with?
And Earl Lloyd played with the Washington Capitals and was one of 3 Black players, including Chuck Cooper and Nathaniel Sweetwater Clifton.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for that. The internet has proved itself useful for today's conversation.
And I'm glad they let him come in as a group. You know what I mean? So at least they had a couple of people to have drinks with.
Well, yeah. It also, I'm
okay,
sure
Big Bird. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So Malia and I were just chatting. I forget how. We were just catching up. We were just shooting the breeze. And somehow we got onto some random tangent around Sesame Street, the electric company, Mr. Rogers. Was there another one? I don't think there was another one.
No, I feel like it was like Sesame Street started. It was the whole PBS. Like there was electric company. Because wasn't that like the hey you guys? Right. And then it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
But I don't. Was that's what was the electric company? I don't remember electric.
We couldn't remember. We thought it was electric company. So if you remember different, let us know.
But I do remember that countdown song, that rhythm of that. Yes. And I would add to that. So Reading Rainbow was in the mix. Certainly Mr. Rogers.
Reading Rainbow.
But that was 90s by that point.
Was it? Are you
that was
sure?
solid 90s.
What? No.
I'm not sure, but that doesn't sound.
No.
I'm looking up. I'm looking up.
I know. It also had a certain look and design.
He lasted much long into the 90s, but we're talking about
but it was started because why would we have been listening to him in the 90s? We were already reading.
Derek, he had that thick mustache, like one of my oldest brother. It was definitely 80s. I can't remember his name right now.
LeVar Burton.
Oh, Burton. Yes.
Uncle LeVar.
Yes. Yes.
83.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, I was watching him when I couldn't, when reading was a part of my learnings, LeVar Burton.
He was so refreshing. He just felt like my big brother.
And that's why you should have been allowed to host Jeopardy.
We won't go there. That's going to stray too far from topic. We won't go
internet there. I'm just saying he comes from that far back as loving him.
Yeah.
Yes. And actually they're bringing Reading Rainbow back.
Was LeVar Burton gay? Because I think I always had that vibe.
Okay, let's not out unless.
No, he isn't.
I don't know. I'm just saying, literally, is he?
No.
There was an affection I felt from him, and a kind of something felt different. You know how people say that about Pee Wee Herman, like something felt different about him?
But I think
felt
for LeVar Burton, the
that
thing that felt different was that he was a smart, gentle Black soul.
gentle.
Exactly. And that was
Maybe it was
new,
the gentleness.
especially back then.
It was the
He is
gentleness.
not gay. He is a heterosexual man married to his wife, Stephanie Cozart Burton, since 1992. They met on The Roots.
Oh, that's right. The Roots. He was also in Roots.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shivers. Wow.
Yeah.
But I think that is a point because there was such this hyper masculine,
That's
you
right.
still had like Billy D. Williams, right?
That's
Like
right. Totally.
Muhammad Ali,
Totally.
you had these very masculine, and then you had the guy who's doing, I'm forgetting his name, but what is it, Kevin the librarian or whatever, who's doing Reading Rainbow now, just these gentle, LeVar, like LeVar would cuddle with you, and like LeVar could be someone you could come out to, right? Unlike
Right.
your,
That's probably right. It felt like that. He felt soft, tender, open. It's nice to see that on TV.
right.
The Black man. Yeah.
And it was also during a time when a lot of teachers were women. Even now, a lot of teachers are women. So there's very few men who are in that profession. So having LeVar Burton there, I think, just raised suspicions because of how society was.
And I don't even know about that. I literally don't know about suspicions. I was just saying for myself, I'm realizing I have that feeling. You know how you have what we call gaydar, but you have this affinity or kind of a sense
where
of
you feel a familiarity.
I knew that about Ellen DeGeneres before she did her thing. I'm like, of course. I knew that as a teenager. I'm like, I claimed her before I even knew that I was queer. I just knew. It's just a knowing.
Right, y'all had something in common.
It's a knowing. Yeah. And I felt relief when she finally said it. I'm like, yes, I could feel it. But LeVar Burton, there's just like an affection, but you're right. It's like he probably felt like a safe person. That's really neat to remember all these people. And then just the power of public television, period.
That's why they killed it so quick. They couldn't even let it stand.
It's a threat.
Because I mean, listen, we started learning some different words, right? Or you would be like, there would be like, and again, I don't know if this was Sesame Street or like different PBS programming, but you would like follow a kid to like what their daddy or mommy does, right? Like, and it would be like, they work in a factory. And like you were talking about working class in Boston. And I feel like that's what PBS was. Like, it was this very like, here's all the diverse working class. So like, like here Susie is going to help her dad like open up the corner store, and he might be Asian, and he says hi to like the Hispanic guy that's dropping off the newspapers, and Susie like helps get the coffee set up, right? Like, and it wasn't like, is this child labor? Why is she handling hot water? It was like this, like, we're all here just making, and look, and now the street opens up. So now Mrs. Johnson is coming in for her daily paper. She walks a cat. That's fun and eccentric.
I love how much of this you remember. I don't remember all these details. She walks.
But maybe because I'm a little younger, like maybe this is where these few years met. You know what I mean? Like, how old were you in '83? Because I was 6.
I'm 78. I'm younger.
Oh, so wait a second. So yeah, we're damn near the same age, girl. How could you not remember this? This was the shit.
But I don't know. I just didn't. Maybe I didn't absorb it enough. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? It's like immigrant household. I don't know. All of these references were things that were not necessarily.
And did you have siblings?
But they were older. Yeah.
Okay, so because I was gonna say maybe you also had distractions, like. For me, like right there, like we were put in front of that TV.
Oh, but that's true. And then by the time I was 4, I did have a younger brother, and I actually helped take care of him, help my grandfather.
Right. So you had the distractions that, like Derek.
I was only a little kid for so long, actually. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, speaking of front TV, Latchkey. Okay. So I had older siblings, but by the time I was like in 2nd grade, all my older siblings were out of the house. And so it was me and my little brother. My grandfather would take care of my little brother while I was at school. But yeah, I walked myself to school. I came home. And then this must have been then before my grandfather arrived, actually, because I remember having the key and letting myself in on my own. Probably when my brother was in preschool, I would go home and wait. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
around what
Go home and
grade
wait.
level? Around what
That
grade
was
level
our
were you guys latchkey
Lock the
kids?
door. Lock the door.
right, stranger danger. But yeah, no, but it was like go home and wait. You're right. Like there wasn't, like it wasn't, and like the after school programs, like I remember being younger and I would go to the Y. Like I don't even remember how I got to the Y. So it must have been, because my school, it wasn't that close to the Y, so somehow maybe a van or something came
Yes.
and picked us up. I have a distinct memory of a van. I mean, a weary memory, maybe a van, but somehow we got to the Y. And then there would be games and things. And then like my mom would come and pick me up and I was always the last one.
Yes.
But then, right, you remember?
The heartbreak of sitting there and waiting. Everyone's gone. You're sitting on the sidewalk, and your teachers. I'm saying you. I'm speaking of my own experience.
Right.
Your teachers to sit back with you, or take you to McDonald's to like keep you distracted till because somebody forgot to come get you.
Exactly, or the bus is late or whatever it is, like my mom's a single mom out here on these streets.
Totally. My mom had all these kids and she's hiding.
Right. They just, and back then there was empathy for that.
Yes.
So like they would just be like, okay, we're just going to sit here, have some more cookies, like, whatever the snack was. There wasn't the judgment of like, oh yeah, your mom's a shitty mom. Like latchkeyism was just something that we was doing. Like it was just like
that was preschool. I remember preschool waiting. By the time my little brother was like kindergarten, first grade, then we were enrolled in some kind of after school program. Really
Wait, there was, but so was it like the Y? Was it like a Y? So it
we
was
had
like
it was some local Catholic charity kind of institutional
right
thing.
Like a community center type. So it was people from different schools, right?
Oh,
like,
totally. Yeah. You get on the bus and you ride all around Patterson before you get there, and yeah.
So around what ages or around what grade levels were you latchkey kids?
I'm trying to remember now.
Because for me, I was in preschool. I would come and go because my preschool was close enough I could walk. And then
Jared, that's intense. How old? I mean, I'm in denial.
Preschool was probably what? I was 6.
You're
6
4. No, because that's kindergarten. You're thinking kindergarten.
Oh, kindergarten. Yes.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Because the preschool I could barely walk.
You're like 2 or 3.
Yeah, because the preschool I could barely walk. Okay, so yes, kindergarten.
I can see that.
Yeah, kindergarten. I was, and so
yes.
as you know, Roxbury. So I lived on a lower part of Fort Hill. And my kindergarten was just outside of Dudley Square. So I'm pretty sure I walked it, or maybe I caught a bus or something. But I'm pretty sure I walked it. I don't remember taking the bus. Took the bus when I was in grammar school. So yeah, I would just sort of come and go. Never thought anything about it.
No.
I'm not even sure my mom knew that I was coming and going sometimes by the bus. Because one time we were coming back from downtown. We took the train to Dudley Square when it was still called Dudley Square. And I said, oh, let's catch the bus. And she's like, why? We can walk. I was tired. I was probably like 7 or 8. I was like, I was too tired. I don't feel like walking. And she's like, no, let's take the bus. I'm like, she wanted to walk. I'm like, I want to take the bus. I have 50 cents or 25 cents or whatever it was at the time. And I'm like, I'll see you back home.
Derek, this is so Derek. This is our Derek. You were so
Derek. This does not surprise me at all.
Thank you.
You were a little man.
I was just tired. And I had my quarter or my dime or whatever it cost me at the time. And so she said, okay, go ahead, fine. And so I got on the bus. I paid my fare. It was too crowded to sit, but I found a little space, got to my stop, got off. And then I heard this voice saying, oh, very good. I turned around. It was my mom. She actually snuck on the bus behind me.
Oh.
Because she didn't think I could do it. I was like, but she didn't know I had already been doing this plenty of times.
Amazing.
But yeah, so it's funny because, kids nowadays, parents nowadays will not allow their children to do this. Like I've said to moms, mostly moms that I've known who've had younger kids, I'm like, just put them on the bus or put them on the train. They're like, this is a different time. We can't do that now. And I'm like, well, how's the time different? Like, I don't know. I don't have kids. So I
think the difference is there's this weird, I'm not saying better parenting, like I don't have kids, good luck to all the parents out there.
Yeah.
It's real. But there was a freedom that we had as kids, and the blame didn't always go on the parents. And I'm not saying like that the blame should never go on the parents. Like, yes, there should be some, if your kid's going to school with a gun and shooting people up, we got to talk to you, but like if your kid is just out and about on a bike, that doesn't make you a shitty parent. And I think like now that does make you a shitty parent, right? Like that will be judged in a way. I mean, like our like parents didn't know, like I'll say some things and my mother was like now my mom's like, you did what? And I'm like, yeah, like, didn't you know, like I would go on my friend Kim's boat and so I was telling a story and my mom was like, well, wasn't Kim's mom or dad there? And I was like, no. And then I thought about it and I was like, wait, we were 14, 15. What the fuck were we doing with a speedboat in the open ocean of like Hawaii drinking our Zimas? Like, I would die if my niece did that now, right? But like my mom, again, we had these. So like there was no way for you to like actually understand what was happening and you didn't care that much. But I think my latchkey, like my first memories were definitely elementary school. I think like fifth and sixth grade, like I remember walking with my friend Amber because her mom worked at this like little hospital by the school. And so we would walk to the hospital and then there was a little cafeteria and they had fried salmon, which was my favorite. So her mom would like, like she worked in the cafeteria. So we would get free fried salmon to share, a plate of free fried salmon. And
what
then fried salmon is like, imagine salmon, but with no.
I don't know what salmon is.
What is salmon?
Oh, salmon is like a skinny udon noodle, like a skinny noodle of within like a Japanese. It's like udon. It's like a Japanese noodle soup. And it has like seaweed in it and fish cake. Well, in Hawaii, this is how we make our salmon. So fried salmon is like the noodles, like everything that goes into the salmon, but without the soup. So like the noodles are more crispy.
Sounds wonderful.
Like, oh, it's so delicious. So we would get a plate of that and that would be our food. And then we would walk there or I would walk home with Lisa. Those were my two friends that we would, whose houses I remember walking to. And then in high school, obviously, I had a job. At 14, I was working at Kentucky Fried Chicken in Coco Marina Shopping Center.
I can't even imagine that.
I totally can imagine that.
I just can't imagine that you would, one, choose to work there, just knowing what I know of you now.
Work is work.
Two, that you would stay long enough to say that you worked there. Like I could see.
Oh, I worked there. Oh, yeah. No,
I
but
you
had
for the job, but then not.
So, okay, well, let me explain because I can explain it because it was all very good 14-year-old logic.
Okay. So
Coco Marina was about a 10-minute walk from the high school. So that's where you're trying to work, right? Like, because right after high school, like right after school, boom, you can walk there. B, it was all about the food. So Chanel worked at Subway. Ty worked at Taco Bell. I worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken. So we all would walk to Coco Marina and we had all the food for the beach, for the this, for the that, because Ty would get Taco Bell. Chanel would always make us Subway sandwiches. I would get chicken. So like then when you're done with our shifts or whatever, we would meet up, we would trade food, we would eat, and then we would get ourselves home. Or like his Chanel was, her brother would come pick us up for a while. And he was like this choreographer. Like he was like one of Janet Jackson's dancers and like ended up coming back and like open up a little thing. So we would then go back to Chanel's and do like a little dance routine or something like that. And then I would walk home because Chanel lived closer. So this was, again, like how you would just wander right throughout the day. But so, yeah, and I had to keep my job for a year to build responsibility to my mother so that I could get my permit at 15.
Driver's permit.
My driver's permit. Yeah.
Brilliant logic. Brilliantly executed.
Yeah.
You couldn't just got a dog or a cat like most other kids.
No, because she didn't want that. She was allergic. She wasn't trying to have that in her house. She was like, and then I had my own money because that was the other thing. I mean, I got allowance. Yeah. We're talking pittance. Like you're not living off of that. You're getting the occasional starbursts. the occasional corn nuts. You know what I'm saying? But you're not living off of Dustin money, cleaning bathroom money. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
But that's a question.
So-
Did you all have allowance?
No.
I had allowance.
And what did you have to do for allowance?
You know, I honestly think my mother would have just given me the allowance anyway because I just was ongoing her
But
support.
you needed walking around money, right?
I didn't get to walk around that much, but I mean, to and from school, sure. Whatever I traversed on my way home from school. But she's laughing. But I think I worked. I just worked. You know, I was doing laundry in the house from probably age 8, 9. I ironed my mother's uniforms. I worked. I just was a worker. I was her support. So she would give me money because I was just responsible. You know, it wasn't like do this chore and then you'll get. It wasn't transactional. It was a retainer, or it was a compensation for me being just on call.
Right. No, exactly. But that's what it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't hourly wage. Like it was like you're throwing in, and so you get a little bit of walking around money.
Absolutely.
Like it wasn't right. This wasn't a union job. Like there wasn't. Well, you get paid 50 cents for
There's
this.
no contract.
Exactly right. There was no contract. You know, there was no, like if you burned yourself with the iron, because I was also ironing.
As I did once.
Right. Like there was no workers' comp, you know, like it wasn't about that.
No OSHA violations or anything.
Exactly. But Derek, did you have to do chores? Were you unpaid labor?
I had to do chores. Yes, that was unpaid labor because, you know, I was living in the house. I was taking up space. I was eating food, creating a mess. Like, yeah, there was no assumption that I would get paid to clean up after myself. However, where I did make money was on my grades. So my mom, because I asked my mom, I think probably around 13, 14, whenever we could get like a job in Massachusetts, whether or not I could get a part-time job, and she didn't want me to. She wanted me to really be focused on my grades. And I said, yeah, but I would also like to have some quote unquote walking around money, which we didn't call it back then, but yeah, I want some walking around money. And so she's like, well, if you get a certain grade, like a B will be this much, and A would be this much. And I was like, ooh, okay, I think I can make this work. And so when I started like, you know, doing well, I was like, she's like, okay, very good, very good. But this is when I was younger. But then as I started understanding the tricks of, you know, learning stuff or memorizing certain number of things so that you could pass the test better and get better grades. I remember at one point between grade levels, I was like, so how about we up the amounts now?
Good for you.
That's right. Negotiate.
And she's like, what, you know, why do you think you should get more? I'm like, because I don't know if I said the word inflation, but I said prices are going up. Things are more expensive.
Derek, I love you.
I didn't say inflation. I don't think I understood that word.
The same. 50 cents don't go the way it used to.
Right. No, I was getting like dollar amounts. I was probably getting like, I think at first I was getting like $2 for a B and $5 for an A or something like that. And then I was like, let's negotiate this to like 5 and 10.
Good for you.
And, you know, I think this was when I went from grade 8 to grade 9 or grade 9 to grade 10.
Oh, definitely by that point. I think that's.
Oh yeah, no, you negotiate in high school because it's a different. And I would agree with that, especially you're in Boston and even New Jersey. I'm sure had good schools. So like, it is you're doing a different kind of learning.
Good. No.
No, New Jersey didn't have good schools.
No. I'm sure New Jersey. I know New Jersey has good schools. I'm just telling you that the schools I went to were deeply disinvested, such that my textbooks, probably all through grammar school, were like ripped up, torn up, curse words all in it from the 60s.
Oh,
yeah. No, we had, you know, we always rank around with Mississippi. So even my mom sent me, like, we moved so that I could go to a good high school, a good public school. But we always rank around, you know, the 49th or 50th. Like we're always like competing with Oklahoma and Mississippi and not be at the bottom. I mean, we had
high school for me with those kinds of school. Like, we
had childcare in high school, like back, you know, again in the 80s in Hawaii. Like teenage pregnancy is just
Oh,
so
honey,
big in Hawaii.
absolutely. Like,
Right?
it was a big milestone to graduate high school where I grew up. Huge milestone.
Exactly. That it's the
Yeah.
same, right? It was the same where I grew up, probably for very different poverty reasons, right? Like, it's not like, I'm not trying to say like Hawaii is like Patterson, New Jersey, but yeah, like teenage, I mean, just,
Similar. Yeah.
you know, like, what is it? Brenda got a baby. Like, I mean, that was just like,
What? What do you mean
you
Brenda
know,
got
remember
a
that
baby?
Tupac song, Brenda got a baby?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't know that song.
That
That didn't make it to the East Coast.
It might not have. It might not have.
It did. Maybe
It made it to Jersey.
It wasn't top in the
Well,
charts.
Boston is a totally different beast. I remember, so I'm going to move us a little into the 90s. So in the 90s, of course, I was from Boston going to college in Philadelphia or just outside of Philadelphia. There was music I had never heard of before. There were genres of hip hop and rap I had never experienced before because they didn't go to Boston.
Right.
Or if they were in Boston, they were on mixtapes that would get passed around from house to house. So I was like, who's Onyx? Who is NWA? Like, you know, now that they're so obvious.
Interesting.
You know, it'd be crazy
Right.
that I wouldn't know. But back then I was sort of like, I've never heard of these folks. Because for me, it was like Boyz II Men, ABC, BBD, the East Coast Family. That's what I was hearing the most. So, you know, all these other genres, all these other groups who were on the radio in Philly, I wasn't hearing on the radio in
And New
Boston.
York City. Yeah.
And New York too. Right.
Wait, because the hip hop station, I mean, we had WILD here because like even I moved here when we had some black radio. Shout out to Spark FM, shout out to like the folks who are holding it down here. But in New York and in Philly, like, and also like depending where you are in Jersey, you can get both stations, right? Like where you are in New York, you can get both stations, but you had huge hip hop stations, right? You had 96.9, Hot 97. Back in the I mean, because when I would come out in the summer, I would just record the New York and Philly hip hop shows because I was in my mom's from New Jersey, so my mom's from like by Morristown and Parsippany. Okay. So whatever station I could get on the radio that had the tape deck, right? Like, and I would just record, and then that was like my mixtape that I would bring. You know, I would bring like however many mixtapes I could buy or blank tapes. If you remember, you could get like the
tapes, y'all.
Like for however many, every week I could get like a pack of 3 from my grandma when she went to buy lotto tickets and her cigarettes and such. Because that's another 80s thing.
Oh, honey.
I know we're coming to a close, but I just want to shout out like this, the cigarette smoking. Not that it's healthy. We should go back to it, but like and this is on in the Jersey Shore. We would go to LBI or Wildwood every summer with my New Jersey family, and you could win cartons of cigarettes as part of the games on the Jersey Shore. And my grandmother, because she still smoked then, she would be like, "Come on, we're going to go to the boardwalk," and those were the games she'd have me play to win her cigarette.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
Right, because you could go to the corner store and buy cigarettes for your folks.
I mean, we could go to the corner store and buy individual cigarettes. You could also buy candy cigarettes back then.
Candy cigarettes, yes. And you would blow the sugar to make the puff. You would blow the sugar.
It only lasts like 1 puff, but you were
and
amazing.
2 chews, right? And then you had lockdown.
Yeah. Exactly. So hold on a second, because we've done a ton of reminiscing.
I'm really trying to understand how this relates to her.
Well, that's where I was going to go. So for the audience, I think the intent was
if the audience
community.
is still with us.
Yeah, I'm sure those who are in our age band probably are still with us. But we were really going to try to address community in different ways in which we learned to be in community back in the 80s. So we mentioned,
and these are all the ways. I mean, I think what we just did is what was done. Is what like our parents did, right? Like sitting around talking story, like building physical community, right? Because you specifically asked what was going on before the internet, right? Like, and what were we building? And I think part of when we talk about land, when we talk about power, right? When we talk about these things, like we don't have none of that if we don't know and trust our neighbor. And part of, I think, what we were vibing on, like whether it was the latchkeyness of it all, or whether it was that our different agency, like there was a sense of community, and we had community as kids. It wasn't play dates being organized. You had your friends and you hung out in the street, and it was kid justice. Exactly. And if something happened, you know, the kid was only allowed to get bullied so much before someone would step in. Right. And then the kid who was doing the bullying would get bullied, right? Like, and probably be the first one to cry. And then it'd be like, shut up. And then you would like move on. Right. Like there was these real community building, you know, moments, I think, like within, like, again, like being a latchkey kid, you know, for me, like you had these kids who you would hang out with, right? Who were also latchkey kids. And, you know, this idea of whatever we're building now, it doesn't happen unless we actually can sit around and talk story. You know, like the only people that I'm interested in moving forward with during a time in fascism are people who want to build community in a certain way. And I think that certain way is Sesame Street. Yeah. I think that certain way is Mr. Rogers. It is kind, straight Black men like LeVar Burton, right? Like it is these things we were given that let all of us live our lives, you know, whether it was, you know, me feeling and being able to like recognize, you know, my Black pride as much as my color privilege, right? Like, you know, I'll let you all tell your own stories about being able to come out, you know, but it was this community space where that's what was happening on Sesame Street, right? Like that's what was happening in these places. And I think, you know, we were joking around, but we were born in like the heyday of American democracy in a way that, because there was still a lot of things wrong, but we did have African liberation. You know, we did have these things that, you know, we don't even have public broadcasting. So like, I think, you know, to help tie it all back, like part of the reason why we could envision, you know, you all using real estate as a way to build wealth and teach other Black people how to do that is because we saw women being boss ladies on Sesame Street, right? Like PBS saw, you know, Maria doing her thing, right? And running the store and all of that kind of stuff. So that's what it has to do with it if you need help connecting dots. And also, I'm a cousin, so we also just having family reminiscent time. So, you know, enjoy the house that they're helping you figure out how to buy so you have generational wealth and have some chit chat with us.
Thank you, cousin. We appreciate that. Let's also remember that given where we are as Gen Xers, we are becoming, if we're not already, the new elders. So not only do you need community in order to move forward, but you need your history. You need to know where you've come from. You need the stories. You need the societal glue that the elders provide. And granted, you know, we're not quite that age. I mean, you know, the boomers are still around. But, you know, we do provide that glue that some of these younger ones, especially the Gen Alphas, some of the things that they don't know, I'm like, how do you not know that by now at this age? Especially that now that you have access to the entirety of human knowledge on one device. But they don't know how to research. They don't know how to ask. They don't know what types of questions to ask. They don't know how to explore beyond the device. So, you know, it is incumbent upon us, those of us who are of a certain age, to be able to share that knowledge. Not even when we're asked, but, you know, just be like, hey, you know what? By the way, when I was your age, maybe we should find a different way of phrasing, because I always hated when I was your age. But, you know, just a way of sort of connecting with them, being like, oh, you know, that reminds me when. Or, you know, you might want to consider this because next year when you're, I don't know, 12 or 15, this is what's going to come up. You know, show them that you know a certain something that's going to help them advance in whatever way.
Right. Or why are you doing, I always ask my nieces, like, why? Like, because I'm always like, what's up with y'all? And then they're like, oh, yeah. And so we're doing this and this. I'm like, okay, what makes it hot? You know, like I first ask a bunch of questions so that I'm fully understanding, so that I'm not condescending. And then, like you said, I'll be like, oh my God, like, so I'm going to go auntie. I always give a precursor to, like, I understand what I'm about to do. I'm about to tell you a story about the good old days. And then, like, I'll jump in, you know, and again, because of how they were raised, you know, by my generation, you know, they're like, yes, auntie, we know. And we, you know, like, I mean, they, you know, they could do old school Queen Latifah too, right? Like, so Thank goodness, you know, there. But I think you're right. We don't want to be, as we're becoming elders, we want to remember the things that elders did to get on our nerves that made it harder. But we also want to remember all the good we learned from them. Yeah. So like, how can we, you know, do it in a way that allows them to receive it? And also tell them the bullshit, because I think that's a part of the problem too. I don't just want to know how y'all created, you know, Martin Luther King, or, you know, well, we created hip hop. So well, a lot of those folks like suck, dude. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't know we were supporting, you know, PDF files. Like, we didn't know we were you know, like, we still need to have a conversation about misogyny and homophobia and hip hop, right? Like, so I think like also being open, because, you know, as we talk about power, you know, and building wealth, like, we're not trying to be how the white man did. You know, when you build wealth, be a little benevolent with it, right? Like, don't pay your people shit, right? Like, don't overextend your tenants, or, you know what I mean? Like, whatever it might be, come from a place that has some of that feeling in it as well.
Yeah. And also remember the jokes. So I remember when we were talking about the cookout, you said you would bring the jokes, you'd bring the people who could tell the jokes. And I try to do that with my little nephew. Aww. So one time we were watching something, it was like me, his mom, and him. And there was something where they were talking about helicopter parents, and they said it a couple of times, and he looked at us. He's like, "What's a helicopter parent?" And without hesitating, I said, "Oh, that's a transformer, like the toy."
That's hilarious.
And he looked up, he looked so confused. And the two of us, his mom and I, just cracked up laughing. He had no clue what we were talking about. And I don't think we even bothered explaining, because we were just dying on the floor laughing. But, you know, he understood there was a joke being made. Hopefully, you know, after a while, he'll understand the joke. Maybe we should explain it to him at some point. But, you know, bring the joke, show that there is humor in what's going on around you. And
right, that you can laugh at yourself.
Right. Auntie Melony, anything you want to say?
I'm just glad you brought us back to Sesame Street.
Right? That's what Black Lining Forum is trying to help you build, right, with your community. Because if we owned Sesame Street, they wouldn't have been able to take it away from us.
There you go.
Come on.
There you go. But we can also create our own Sesame Street as well, and Sesame Street 2.0.
Yeah, I think that's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and center and love on the working class the way Sesame Street did, because that's an important part of this.
Definitely. All right, ladies, I think we have to call it here. Cousin, it was great having you as always.
Always wonderful.
And for those of you in the audience, if you have questions or comments, feel free to leave them on whatever platform you are listening or watching on, or go to that website, which I will make sure to include in the show notes. And we will see you on the next episode of the Black Lining Forum. Take care.
Ciao.